The warship hung in the void like a ghost, black as the abyss, sleek and deadly. Its hull absorbed light, a silhouette cut from nightmares. The abyssal wrath had no insignias, no allegiance, only the whispered rumors of its existence. To most, it was nothing more than a myth, a specter conjured to scare unruly soldiers into discipline. But to the enemy fleets of the Zenkal Dominion, it was very real. The scattered remains of their warships, reduced to space dust, were evidence enough. Nobody knew who crewed it or where it came from. It struck from the shadows, leaving devastation in its wake. And then it vanished without a trace. Inside the darkened command center, Captain Diana Grayson moved with precision, her steps silent as the vacuum outside. Her crew operated in complete darkness, their eyes accustomed to the dim glow of tactical displays. She stopped in front of her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kiran Malik, who was studying the latest reconnaissance data. "Report," she ordered, her voice low but firm. "2 Zenkal destroyers patrolling the Kiraus Belt, Captain. Light escort. Their main fleet is further out, guarding the mining colony on Arzek," Malik replied. Diana's lips curled into a predatory smile. "Perfect. Send the coordinates to targeting. We'll make this quick." As Malik relayed the commands, Diana glanced at the battle map. It was hard to believe how far humanity had come since the fall of Earth. The Zenkal had come without warning. A vast armada blotting out the stars, leaving cities as charred husks. Billions died within weeks, the survivors scattered among the stars, fighting back with whatever remnants they could find. But abyssal wrath was different. It was humanity's response, the culmination of desperation and genius. Built in secrecy on a derelict mining colony, it housed experimental tech no other vessel possessed, cloaking arrays that baffled sensors, weapons that could rip through even Zenkal battleships, and a neural command network that made it as responsive as a living predator. It was forged from vengeance and operated under one directive: make the Zenkal fear the dark. "Captain," Malik called out. "Targets acquired and locked. Awaiting your order." Diana took a deep breath, her heart steady despite the familiar surge of adrenaline. She knew that every shot fired from abyssal wrath whispered the same promise. Humanity would not die quietly. "Fire." The ship hummed, and the void outside briefly flared as pulse cannons tore through the first destroyer's hull. The second turned, but the abyssal wrath had already repositioned, sending a torpedo straight into its engine core. A brilliant, silent explosion tore it apart. Diana allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. "Status? No survivors, Captain. Transmission logs indicate no distress signals got out," Malik confirmed. "Good. Begin cloaking. Let's head for Arzek. Time to send a message." As the ship faded from sight, Diana couldn't help but wonder. Did the Zenkal know what hunted them? Did they whisper about the darkness, terrified of the predator lurking in the void? She hoped so. Fear was a weapon as sharp as any blade, and it was one she intended to wield until humanity reclaimed the stars. As the crew went about their tasks with disciplined efficiency, Diana leaned back into her command chair. They would strike again, and again, until the Zenkal remembered why humans were never meant to be cornered. But as the ship moved through the endless void, one thought nagged at her mind. How long could they keep this up before the hunter became the hunted? The answer didn't matter. Not now. There were more enemies to kill, more scores to settle. Humanity's vengeance had just begun, and the abyssal wrath would make sure the galaxy never forgot. As the abyssal wrath drifted soundlessly through the void, Diana couldn't shake the unease gnawing at the edge of her thoughts. The ship was a marvel of human ingenuity, born from shattered hopes and grim determination. It had become a legend, a ghost ship that struck without warning and vanished before alarms could even echo. But every mission carried more weight, more danger. Malik approached, his expression guarded. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up a distress signal, human frequency." Diana stiffened, her instincts battling against her training. "Details?" Malik shook his head. "Weak signal, repeating. Could be a trap. But if it's human, they're in trouble." Diana's jaw clenched. They had their orders. No distractions, no deviations. But abandoning fellow survivors didn't sit right with her. It wasn't how she was raised. "Pinpoint the source," she ordered. The bridge hummed as data poured through the consoles. Malik's brow furrowed. "It's coming from a derelict freighter drifting near the Arzek colony perimeter. Minimal power signatures. Could be a decoy." Diana didn't like it. The Zenkal were cunning, and they had started mimicking human distress signals to draw out resistance fighters. But if there was even a slim chance of survivors... She straightened. "Helm, set an approach vector. Keep us cloaked. We'll drift into sensor range." The ship moved like a phantom, edging towards the freighter. On the main screen, the derelict slowly came into view. A massive hauler, its hull pockmarked with battle scars. Diana narrowed her eyes. "Scan for life signs," she commanded. Malik tapped at his console. "I'm picking up faint biosignatures. 4, maybe 5. They're in the lower decks. No power, no heat signatures. Ship's completely dead." Diana considered the odds. It wasn't uncommon for scavengers to take shelter in abandoned ships, but something about this didn't add up. "Send a remote probe," she ordered. Within moments, a small drone slipped from the Abyssal Wrath's launch bay, gliding toward the freighter. It latched onto the airlock, cutting through the hull to gain entry. The feed popped up on the main screen, flickering as it moved through the dark corridors. Debris floated aimlessly, and the walls bore deep plasma burns. "Looks like a fight broke out," Malik muttered. Suddenly, the camera jerked, and Diana's heart skipped a beat. The probe rounded a corner, its light revealing a cluster of bodies, human, frozen and lifeless. She swallowed down the grim reality. "Damn it," she whispered. But before she could issue a recall order, the feed jolted again. Movement, a faint silhouette slinking through the dark. Diana leaned forward, her instincts on high alert. Malik squinted at the screen. "Is that—" The figure turned, a gaunt face with wide, terrified eyes. The probe zoomed in, and Diana's heart sank. A young girl, barely in her teens, clutched a makeshift spear, glaring at the probe with defiant terror. "She's human," Malik whispered. Diana didn't hesitate. "Prepare a boarding team. I'm going over myself." Malik snapped his gaze to her. "Captain, it could still be a trap." She met his eyes, her expression unyielding. "We're not leaving her to die. Ready the team." Within minutes, Diana suited up, her pulse pounding as the boarding craft glided toward the freighter. As the airlock connected, she drew her sidearm, signaling to the squad behind her. The hatch opened, and they moved in silently, weapons raised. The air was stale, cold. Diana's visor adjusted to the dark as she crept down the corridor. A faint noise, scraping metal, made her pause. She gestured, and her squad fanned out. Ahead, the girl crouched behind a cargo crate, her hands shaking as she held her makeshift weapon. Diana holstered her gun and raised her hands slowly. "It's okay," she called out. "We're human, here to help." The girl didn't move, her eyes darting between Diana and the soldiers. Finally, her grip on the spear loosened, and her lip quivered. They came," the girl stammered. "Killed everyone, hid in the ducts, didn't come out. I thought I'd die here." Diana knelt, keeping her tone gentle. "You're safe now. What's your name?" Alyssa, she whispered. Diana smiled softly. Alyssa, we're taking you somewhere safe. You're not alone anymore. Suddenly the girl's gaze shifted past Diana, her eyes widening. No, behind you. Instinct kicked in, and Diana spun around just as a hulking Zenkal warrior lunged from the shadows. She fired point blank, plasma bolts searing through its chest. It collapsed, but more shapes moved in the dark. Ambush! Malik barked through the comms. Diana grabbed Alyssa, shoving her behind the squad. Fall back! Cover fire! As pulses of energy lit up the corridor, Diana realized the horrifying truth. The Zenkal hadn't just slaughtered the freighter crew. They had waited, using the girl as bait. She cursed under her breath, dragging Alyssa toward the airlock as her squad formed a defensive line. More Zenkal charged, roaring, their massive limbs thrashing through the narrow corridor. Malik's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, they're swarming! We have to retreat! Diana gritted her teeth. Hold the line! We're not leaving anyone behind! They fought their way back, inch by agonizing inch, the enemy relentless. As the airlock came into view, Diana pushed Alyssa inside and turned to help cover the retreat. Just as the last soldier scrambled through, Diana slammed the hatch, and the shuttle disengaged, rocketing back to the abyssal wrath. Breathing hard, she glanced down at Alyssa, who stared back with wide, teary eyes. Diana forced a reassuring smile, despite the knot tightening in her chest. The war wasn't just out there. It had seeped into their souls, turning every rescue into a fight for survival. And as the abyssal wrath sped away, Diana couldn't help but feel the burden of guilt pressing down on her. They had saved one life, but how many more were lost because they'd dared to hope? Back on the abyssal wrath, the crew moved with disciplined haste, securing the shuttle and rushing Alyssa to the med bay. Diana pulled off her helmet, sweat clinging to her brow, and took a moment to breathe. The adrenaline still surged through her veins, but she forced herself to focus. Malik approached, his face a grim mask. We lost 2 men, Morrison and Lee. The Zenkal overwhelmed them before they could fall back. Diana's jaw clenched, and she forced down the rising guilt. Understood. Debrief the squad and make sure their families receive word, if we can find them. Malik gave a short nod and hesitated. Captain, permission to speak freely? She glanced at him, recognizing the tension in his posture. Granted. He lowered his voice. That was reckless. We should have cut our losses. The girl was bait, damn good bait. Next time it might be the whole crew. Diana met his gaze without flinching. And next time it could be someone's daughter, sister, or friend. I won't abandon survivors just because it's risky. That's not who we are. Malik looked at the floor, lips pressed tight. Understood, Captain. She could tell he wasn't convinced, but she didn't have the luxury of making everyone agree with her choices. As she walked toward the med bay, fragments of memories clawed at her. Her own sister, left behind on Earth when the Zenkal invaded. Diana had been on an off-world patrol when it happened, helpless to do anything but listen as the planet fell. She couldn't save her own family, but she'd be damned if she didn't try to save others. Inside the med bay, Alyssa sat on one of the cots, a thin blanket wrapped around her shoulders. A medic was running diagnostics while the girl stared numbly at the floor. Diana approached cautiously, her presence making Alyssa look up, eyes still haunted. Alyssa, Diana began, trying to keep her voice soft. You did good back there. You survived. The girl gave a tiny, brittle laugh. Survived? Everyone else died. Mom, Dad, Uncle Ray. They tried to fight, but the aliens just tore through them. Diana knelt next to the cot, resting a hand on Alyssa's shoulder. You did what you had to. You stayed quiet. You stayed alive. That's the hardest fight of all. Alyssa's chin quivered, but she swallowed her tears. They left me there. I thought maybe they'd come back. But they didn't. I waited so long. Diana squeezed her shoulder gently. The Zenkal don't leave survivors. They used your ship as bait, counted on someone like us to come looking. You're lucky they didn't find you before we did. Alyssa's expression hardened, and a spark of anger flickered in her eyes. I hate them. I want them all dead. Diana didn't correct her. She understood that rage, nurtured it herself. We're working on it. This ship exists to make them pay for what they did. You're safe here. We'll make sure of it. Alyssa gave a tiny nod, but her eyes didn't lose their hard edge. Diana knew that look. It was the same one she saw in the mirror every morning. A girl who had lost everything, struggling to survive on nothing but spite and resolve. Malik's voice buzzed in Diana's earpiece. Captain, you should come to the bridge. We've got movement on long-range sensors. Reluctantly, Diana gave Alyssa a reassuring pat and left the medbay, quickening her pace. When she arrived on the bridge, Malik was already pulling up data on the holo display. 3 Zenkal warships just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system, he reported. Heavy cruisers. Looks like they're sweeping for survivors. Diana frowned. They must have caught a fragment of the distress signal after all. Or they're following up on the patrol ships we took out earlier. Either way, they're headed straight for Arzek, Malik said. If they spot the mining colony, it's going to be a slaughter. Civilians aren't armed. Diana's mind raced. They could use the colony as bait, lure the cruisers in and ambush them from the shadows. It would be risky, but they'd pulled off worse. Helm, set an intercept course, she ordered. Full cloak. We'll position ourselves in the asteroid field and wait for them to cross the kill zone. Malik hesitated. Captain, if they detect us, 3 heavy cruisers might be more than we can handle. We're not letting them massacre another colony, Diana snapped, her tone colder than she intended. If we wait for reinforcements, the people on Arzek are dead. We hit them fast and hard. Use the asteroids for cover. If we can take out one cruiser quickly, the others might retreat. Malik nodded, though his eyes betrayed a hint of worry. Diana knew it was risky, but if the Zenkal found that colony, it would be another massacre like Earth. She couldn't let that happen. Not again. The crew prepared for battle, tension thick in the air. As the abyssal wrath moved into position, Diana allowed herself a moment of silence, closing her eyes and remembering her sister's smile, faint and fading like an old photograph. This wasn't just war. It was personal. And as long as she had breath in her lungs, she would make sure the Zenkal paid for every soul they had claimed. The enemy cruisers approached, unaware of the predator lurking in the shadows. Diana gripped the command rail, eyes locked on the tactical display. We wait until they're in optimal range, she murmured. Then we show them what it means to fear the dark. The abyssal wrath lay in wait within the asteroid field, cloaked and deadly. Outside the viewport, massive rocks drifted lazily through the void, spinning and colliding in a slow, chaotic dance. The enemy cruisers moved in formation, 3 towering behemoths bristling with weaponry, their hulls gleaming with the sickly green light of Zenkal energy cores. Diana watched the tactical display, calculating their speed and trajectory. The cruisers were in a standard sweep pattern, efficient, thorough, and ruthless. If they reached the mining colony, it would be a massacre. She glanced at Malik, who was focused on the fire control systems. Status? Main cannons charged and primed, torpedo bays loaded, targeting solutions for lead cruiser calculated, he reported, his voice calm but tense. Diana took a breath, her gaze steady. We take out the lead ship first. It's their command vessel. Once it's down, the others might hesitate. Full power to forward shields during the attack. We can't let them hit our core. Malik gave a terse nod. Understood. Positioning solutions ready. She keyed the ship-wide communication. All hands, battle stations. This is it. We're taking the fight to them. No mercy, no hesitation. Let's remind these bastards why humanity isn't finished yet. The crew acknowledged, and Diana could feel the tension winding through the ship like a coiled spring. They all knew the odds. 3 cruisers could rip Abyssal Wrath apart if they got a solid lock. Her hands tightened on the command rail. Helm, adjust course. Move us closer. Slowly. I want their targeting arrays scrambling. The ship glided forward, barely a whisper against the void. Diana watched as the enemy cruisers drifted into the kill zone. The lead vessel, larger and more heavily armored than the others, moved slightly ahead. Its massive turrets swept the area, searching for threats. Diana felt her pulse quicken. Now, target the command vessel. Pulse cannons and torpedoes. Fire! The Abyssal Wrath roared to life, pulse cannons lancing through the darkness and slamming into the cruiser's forward shields. The first few blasts shattered the barrier, and the torpedoes followed, streaking through the gap and slamming into the hull. Explosions rippled across the cruiser's bow, tearing armor plates free and venting atmosphere. The enemy ship reeled, its structure faltering. But before Diana could give the order to press the attack, the other 2 cruisers adjusted course, their weapons lighting up. "Incoming fire!" Malik shouted. The Abyssal Wrath veered sharply, evading the first volley, but a plasma burst clipped the aft shields, making the ship shudder. Diana steadied herself, eyes blazing with determination. "Keep moving! Circle the lead cruiser! Use it as a shield against the others!" she commanded. The ship darted around the burning wreck, using its bulk to block the line of fire. The lead cruiser was listing now, secondary explosions rippling through its superstructure. Diana couldn't let up. Not yet. "Concentrate fire on their core!" she barked. The pulse cannons unleashed another salvo, and one shot struck true, right through the reactor housing. A blinding burst of energy erupted, and the command cruiser fractured into 1,000 fiery shards. "First target neutralized," Malik reported, trying to keep the relief from his voice, but the victory was short-lived. The remaining 2 cruisers split, moving to flank. One fired a focused beam that grazed the Abyssal Wrath's port side, searing the hull. "Port shields down to 30%, Malik called out. Diana gritted her teeth. "Deploy countermeasures, launch decoy drones and scramble their sensors." Tiny drones shot out from the ship, scattering in a wide arc and broadcasting false signals. The cruisers hesitated, their targeting systems flickering with interference. Diana didn't waste a second. "Turn hard to starboard and fire a torpedo spread. Make it look like a retreat." The Abyssal Wrath pivoted sharply, feigning a desperate escape. The enemy cruisers bit down on the bait, pursuing with reckless speed. As they moved to follow, the torpedoes detonated behind them, disrupting their formation. "Now, full power to thrusters! Swing around and target their engines!" Diana ordered. The ship spun on a dime, firing into the rear of the closest cruiser. The blasts tore through its propulsion systems, and the vessel began to drift, powerless and vulnerable. Diana seized the opportunity. "Finish it off! Center mass!" The next barrage ripped through the cruiser's spine, and the ship disintegrated, fragments scattering like meteors. Malik glanced at her, his eyes wide with awe. "One left, Captain." They're adjusting, preparing to jump. Diana wouldn't allow it. If the last cruiser escaped, they'd call in reinforcements, and the colony would be doomed. "Fire the interdiction pulse. Disable their FTL," she commanded. The Abyssal Wrath fired a shimmering wave of energy that enveloped the cruiser, disrupting its jump drive. The enemy ship slowed, its engines flaring erratically. Diana didn't hesitate. "Target their bridge and fire," she said, her voice cold and unyielding. The pulse cannons hammered the cruiser's command center, and a massive explosion blossomed across its front. The vessel lurched, then fell silent, drifting like a gutted carcass. Silence hung over the bridge as the crew processed what they had just accomplished. 3 cruisers, annihilated with precision and fury. Diana finally allowed herself a breath, tension leaking from her muscles. "Damage report," she requested. Malik scanned his console. "Minor hull breaches on port side. Shields recharging. No casualties." Diana nodded, satisfaction tempered with exhaustion. "Good work, everyone. Get us out of this field and resume cloaking. We'll report back to command once we're clear." Malik hesitated, then spoke softly. "Captain, that was impressive. They didn't stand a chance." Diana met his eyes and allowed herself a faint smile. "We hit them where it hurts. Let them tell their kind that humanity isn't done fighting. Let them remember abyssal wrath." As the ship slipped back into the shadows, Diana took one last look at the debris field. The remnants of their enemy scattered like dust in the void. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was retribution, and humanity would not rest until the stars were theirs again. But somewhere in her mind, doubt still gnawed. How long could they keep this up? The Zenkal wouldn't underestimate them forever. One mistake, and it would all come crashing down. Diana straightened, pushing the thought away. One victory at a time. That was how they'd reclaim their future. As the abyssal wrath slipped into the safety of deep space, Diana finally allowed herself to lean back in the command chair, exhaustion settling into her bones. The bridge remained quiet. The crew focused on routine checks and system diagnostics. Despite the victory, a gnawing unease lingered in her gut. Malik approached with a data pad, his brow furrowed. "Captain, we've completed damage assessments. Minor hull fractures on the port side are sealed. Shield generators are back to 80% capacity." Diana nodded absently. "Good work. How's Alyssa?" "She's stable. Med team says she's shaken up, but no injuries besides malnutrition and dehydration. She's eating now." Diana glanced at the tactical display, her thoughts drifting back to the girl's haunted eyes. Just a kid, trapped on a ghost ship, surrounded by death. Diana knew that look too well. She'd seen it in herself the day Earth fell. "Malik," she said softly, "we can't keep picking up strays. This ship wasn't built to carry civilians." He hesitated, knowing the truth of it. "What do we do with her, then? We can't just drop her off at the next outpost. Too risky." Diana sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "No, we can't. We'll contact command and see if there's a safe point we can reach. Until then, make her useful. Train her. Let her feel like she's part of something." Malik gave her a nod. "Understood." Before he could leave, the comm system crackled to life. "Bridge, this is engineering. We've got an issue down here. Can you come take a look?" Diana exchanged a wary glance with Malik. "On my way. You've got the bridge." She headed to engineering, passing crew members who were busy with routine maintenance. When she reached the main reactor chamber, Chief Engineer Kessler was waiting, his face twisted in a mix of frustration and anxiety. "What's the problem, Chief?" Diana asked, keeping her voice calm despite the tension creeping into her mind. Kessler gestured to the reactor console. "It's the cloaking matrix. We took a harder hit than we thought in that last skirmish. One of the stabilizers is fried, and the backup is glitchy. We're fine for now, but any sustained cloak could cause a feedback loop." Diana frowned. "How long to fix it?" He grimaced. "We need to replace the entire stabilizer coil. Problem is, we're fresh out of spares. I might be able to rig something temporary, but it won't hold up under heavy strain." She felt a chill settle in her stomach. Without the cloak, Abyssal Wrath was nothing more than a highly armed but painfully visible target. The Zenkal would tear them apart. "What about salvaging from the debris field?" Diana asked, trying to keep her tone measured. Kessler shook his head. We'd need Zenkal parts to patch it properly. Their tech doesn't exactly mesh with ours, but I could jury-rig something if we had components from one of their cruisers. Diana's mind raced through the options. Going back to the debris field was a risk. More Zenkal could be on their way, but they couldn't afford to be caught without their cloak. I'll make the call, she said at last. Prep a salvage crew. I'll take a small team and the stealth shuttle. We'll move fast. As she made her way back to the bridge, her gut twisted with the weight of the decision. They'd barely escaped the last fight. Going back could mean walking straight into a trap. But staying vulnerable wasn't an option. Back on the bridge, Malik looked up as she entered. Problem? Diana kept her voice steady. Cloaking stabilizers compromised. We need parts from the Zenkal wreckage. I'm taking a shuttle with a small team to salvage what we can. Malik's jaw tightened. Captain, let me go instead. You're too valuable to risk on a scavenging mission. She gave him a hard look. We're all valuable, Malik. Besides, no one knows their tech integration better than I do. You stay here and keep the ship ready for immediate extraction. He didn't argue further, but she could see the tension in his posture. As she gathered a small crew and suited up, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, like a shadow lurking just out of sight. The shuttle launch was smooth, and soon they were gliding back toward the wreckage field. Diana kept her eyes on the scanners, half expecting enemy signals to pop up at any moment. The wreckage of the lead cruiser loomed ahead, a twisted, floating carcass venting frozen gases into the void. Diana guided the shuttle in carefully, scanning for residual energy surges. Radiation's still high, but it's stable, Ensign Harlow reported, her eyes darting across the sensor readouts. We should be able to dock without exposure risk. Diana nodded. Take us in. Nice and easy. As they locked onto the broken hull, Diana's gut churned with unease. She couldn't afford another ambush, not when the ship's survival depended on this mission. They cut through the outer airlock and slipped inside, their boots scraping against scorched metal. The cruiser's corridors were twisted and blackened from the reactor meltdown. Bodies floated in the dim light, Zenkal soldiers frozen in grotesque poses, their carapaces shattered by the explosion. Stay alert, Diana whispered, moving cautiously forward. The team split up, each scanning for compatible tech. As Diana moved toward the engineering deck, she heard a faint sound, like scraping metal. She signaled Harlow to cover her and crept closer, her pulse hammering in her ears. Turning the corner, she froze. A Zenkal soldier, alive but gravely wounded, lay slumped against a control panel, its breathing ragged and shallow. It looked up, hatred burning in its gleaming eyes. Diana leveled her gun, but the alien just wheezed a laugh, a thin trail of dark ichor dripping from its mandibles. It spoke in broken, guttural English. Human, think you victorious? It rasped. More come, many more. You die, in fire. Diana's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to remain steady. How many? When? The creature coughed, a wet, gurgling sound. You wake the horde. They know now. Shadows will burn. Before she could press for more, the alien's eyes glazed over, and it fell limp, its final breath rattling through its chest. A chill crawled down Diana's spine. If the Zenkal knew about abyssal wrath, if they had tracked their attacks and pieced together a pattern, they could be calling for reinforcements. An armada could already be en route. She swallowed hard and keyed her calm. All teams, secure what you have and fall back. We're leaving. Now. As they hurried back to the shuttle, Diana couldn't help but feel like the shadows were closing in. The hunter had become the hunted, and the next battle might be their last. The shuttle hummed with tension as it sped back toward the abyssal wrath. Diana sat rigid in the cockpit, her eyes locked on the sensor display. The wreckage field behind them loomed like a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen bodies, and her mind raced with the dying Zenkal's words. "You wake the horde. Shadows will burn." Beside her, Ensign Harlow glanced at the captain, worry etched across her face. "Captain, are you okay?" Diana forced herself to breathe steadily. "Just thinking. If that Zenkal wasn't bluffing, we might have stirred up a hornet's nest. We need to get the ship ready for anything." The comm crackled. "Bridge to shuttle. Status?" Malik's voice came through, clipped and tense. Diana tapped her headset. "We've got the parts. No complications during salvage. Returning to the bay now." There was a slight pause before Malik replied, his tone a bit softer. "Glad to hear it. Engineering's prepped and ready to install as soon as you dock." When they finally touched down, Diana jumped out before the engines had fully powered down. The rest of the team hauled crates of components while Kessler barked orders, directing his crew to start the repairs. Diana caught his eye and gestured for a quick word. "We good to go?" she asked, keeping her voice low. Kessler wiped his greasy hands on his jumpsuit. "I'll make it fit. It won't be pretty, but the stabilizer coil should hold once we splice it in. Just give me a few hours." "We might not have that long," Diana muttered, glancing around. "Double time it. I have a bad feeling about this." He gave a curt nod and jogged back to his crew. Diana turned and headed to the bridge, her thoughts a tangled mess. If the Zenkal really were mobilizing, Abyssal Wrath couldn't afford to be caught off guard. The last thing they needed was a full battle group on top of them. As she entered the bridge, Malik looked up, sensing the tension radiating from her. "Captain, everything all right?" Diana hesitated before answering. "That cruiser wasn't completely deserted. We found a survivor, Zenkal, mortally wounded. It claimed reinforcements are coming." An Armada Malik's face tightened, and his hands clenched into fists. "Damn, how credible is that?" Diana shook her head. "No way to tell, but we can't ignore it. We need to prepare for the worst. Start running long-range scans. Look for any unusual subspace activity." "Aye, Captain," Malik replied, moving to relay her orders. She crossed the bridge and pulled up the tactical map, watching as new data streamed in. Her mind kept drifting back to the girl, Alyssa, wondering if bringing her aboard had drawn unwanted attention. It was irrational, she knew, but paranoia was a survival trait nowadays. Malik approached again, his face grim. "Captain, we're picking up something. Faint signal on the outer edge of the system. Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL." Diana's stomach twisted. "How many?" "Looks like at least a dozen warships. Some cruisers, some destroyers. There's a battleship, too. They're sweeping the area. Standard search pattern." She gripped the console tighter, feeling the noose closing in. "Do they have a fix on us?" "Negative. They're searching, but they're not pinpointing. Looks like they're trying to find the wreckage first." Diana exhaled slowly, forcing her mind to stay clear. "Good. That buys us some time. Keep us cloaked and drift out of the area. We'll regroup once the stabilizer's repaired." Malik hesitated. "And the colony on Arzek?" Diana bit her lip, thinking hard. "They're not actively heading that way yet. We can't risk exposing ourselves until the cloak's back online. If they break formation and move toward the colony, we'll figure something out." She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, suffocating. The thought of abandoning civilians made her skin crawl, but rushing into a fight unprepared would just get them all killed. Suddenly, a new signal flashed on the display. Malik's face went pale. "Captain, the Zenkal battleship just launched a recon probe. It's heading straight for the debris field." Diana's mind raced. "They're checking for survivors. If they find that dead cruiser, they'll know something's off. We can't let them gather evidence." Malik looked torn. If we take out the probe, they'll know we're here. She squared her shoulders. If we don't, they'll comb this whole sector until they find us. Load a high-velocity missile, minimal energy signature. As soon as that probe hits the debris field, destroy it. Malik gave the order, and the targeting officer confirmed the missile was ready. The seconds dragged as the probe crept closer to the field, skimming over shattered hull fragments and frozen bodies. Range optimal, Malik said quietly. Diana took a deep breath. Fire! The missile shot forth, a barely visible streak. It struck the probe dead center, shredding it into tiny fragments. Diana watched the displays, tension coiling in her gut. Malik cursed under his breath. They picked up something. Enemy ships adjusting course toward the debris field. They know something's not right. Diana clenched her jaw. Damn it. Helm, pull us back. Keep us cloaked and maintain minimal emissions. She could feel the crew's eyes on her, the weight of their silent questions pressing down. They were good people, brave, skilled, but they weren't invincible. One mistake could doom them all. Malik approached again, his voice low and urgent. Captain, if they find the remains of that cruiser and piece together how it was destroyed, they'll know about Abyssal Wrath. They'll know we're not just some rogue ship. They'll know we're a threat. Diana nodded, her thoughts racing. Then we can't give them time to think. Once the stabilizer is operational, we're going to hit them, hard and fast. Take out the battleship first, then scatter the formation. We'll make it look like the wreckage exploded from internal damage. Malik hesitated. That's a lot of firepower to go up against. I know, Diana said, her tone unyielding. But if we don't take the initiative, they'll corner us. We have to be the ones to strike first. Fear is our weapon. They can't fear us if they're hunting us down like prey. Malik gave a slow nod, understanding settling into his eyes. Aye, Captain. Diana stared at the star map, calculating their next move. The Horde was coming, just like the Zenkal had promised. But they would learn, just as the others had before them. Humans didn't die quietly. And as long as Abyssal Wrath prowled the void, they would make sure the galaxy never forgot what it meant to challenge humanity. Diana paced the bridge, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. The Zenkal fleet was closing in on the debris field, and with the stabilizer still under repair, Abyssal Wrath couldn't risk uncloaking for a direct assault. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. Malik approached cautiously. Captain, engineering reports the stabilizer is at 50%. Kessler says he needs another hour to make it combat ready. Diana muttered a curse under her breath. We don't have an hour. If they figure out what happened to that cruiser, they'll know it wasn't just an accident. She looked at the tactical display, tracing the formation of the enemy ships with her finger. They were tightening their search pattern, converging on the point where the command cruiser had gone down. One wrong move, and they'd be caught between a battleship and two heavy cruisers. Her mind worked fast, dissecting the situation. What if we distract them? Give them a new target? Malik frowned. You're suggesting baiting them away? Yes, Diana replied, eyes sharp. We still have a few long-range decoy drones, right? He nodded slowly, catching on. We could launch one toward the opposite end of the field, make it look like a human resistance ship breaking cover. Diana nodded. Exactly. They'll chase the signal thinking they caught one of our stragglers. It might buy us time to finish repairs and regroup. Malik tapped the console, bringing up the drone deployment interface. We can program it to emit intermittent human distress signals and power surges, make it look damaged but still fleeing. Do it, Diana ordered, and launch it at maximum speed once it's ready. As Malik got to work, Diana turned to the rest of the crew. This is our best shot at throwing them off. If it works, we'll have a window to strike back. If it doesn't... She let the thought trail off, not wanting to voice the worst-case scenario. Minutes dragged by, the crew working with quiet urgency. Finally, Malik gave her a nod. Drone is programmed and primed, launching now. On the screen, the decoy shot out of the hangar, angling away from the debris field. It sent out sporadic bursts of energy, simulating a damaged engine. Diana held her breath as the enemy formation hesitated, their sensors picking up the sudden anomaly. "It's working," Malik whispered. "The battleship and one cruiser are breaking off to pursue." Diana exhaled slowly, allowing a flicker of relief. "Good. Keep monitoring their movements. As soon as the stabilizer is back online, we'll strike the remaining cruiser." The bridge remained quiet, everyone tense and focused. Diana felt the minutes stretch unbearably long, her mind running through battle scenarios. If the distraction failed and the battleship turned back, they'd be cornered with no escape. Malik's console chimed, and he gave her a tight-lipped smile. "Stabilizer at 90%. Kessler says it's holding. We can risk cloaking maneuvers now." Diana gave a sharp nod. "Good. Helm, take us in on a low-energy drift. We'll approach from the cruiser's blind spot and hit their engines first." The abyssal wrath moved like a predator through the void, silent and unseen. The remaining cruiser continued its search, seemingly unaware of the danger creeping toward it. As they closed in, Malik brought up the targeting data. "We've got a clear shot at their propulsion array." Diana's voice was firm, cutting through the tension. "Pulse cannons, full spread. Torpedoes to follow. Make it quick." "Firing," Malik confirmed. The cannons roared to life, energy lances cutting through the void and slamming into the cruiser's engines. The ship lurched, power flickering as explosions tore through the engine block. Torpedoes followed, burying into the hull and detonating in a chain reaction. The cruiser erupted in a massive fireball, debris scattering into space. Diana didn't relax, her mind already anticipating the next threat. "Status on the battleship and second cruiser?" she demanded. Malik checked the sensors. "They're still chasing the decoy. Haven't noticed the destruction yet. We've got a few minutes before they realize." Diana's thoughts raced. "We can't take on the battleship directly, but we might be able to use the cruiser against it. If we cripple the cruiser, it could collide with the battleship if they move too fast." Malik arched an eyebrow. "You want to bait them into a collision?" Diana gave him a grim smile. "If they're chasing a decoy at high speed, they'll be too focused on the target to notice trajectory changes. We just need to nudge the cruiser off course." "Ballsy," Malik muttered. "But it could work." "Prepare for an attack run," Diana ordered. "Once they're close enough, we'll fire a torpedo volley to knock out the cruiser's steering thrusters." The crew worked fast, coordinating targeting solutions and timing. The battleship and remaining cruiser closed in on the decoy, their speed increasing as they tried to close the distance. Diana watched them with steely focus. "Hold, hold." When the ships were in the optimal position, she gave the order. "Fire!" Torpedoes streaked through space, striking the cruiser's side thrusters and blowing them apart. The ship listed, its trajectory skewing wildly. The battleship, moving too fast to correct, collided with the cruiser's flank. The impact sent shockwaves through both ships, and the battleship's shield generators shorted out, flickering wildly. Diana seized the moment. "Target the battleship. Concentrate fire on the bridge. Now!" The abyssal wrath unleashed a furious barrage, pulse cannons ripping through the exposed command center of the battleship. Explosions rocked the massive vessel as fire consumed its upper decks. Malik grinned, unable to hide his satisfaction. "Direct hit. Bridge destroyed. They're adrift." Diana didn't relax, her instincts warning her that it wasn't over yet. "Keep cloaked and maintain distance. They still have firepower. We'll observe and see if they send a distress signal." As the crippled battleship listed, she let out a slow breath. It wasn't total annihilation, but they'd dealt a severe blow to the enemy force. "Send a message to command," Diana ordered. "Let them know we crippled a battleship and destroyed 2 cruisers. Request immediate reinforcements to secure the sector." Malik moved to carry out her orders, but Diana stayed rooted to her spot, staring at the drifting wreckage. Victory was never clean or easy, but they'd survived another day and shown the Zenkal that humans weren't to be trifled with. Still, the reality weighed on her. Their secret weapon wasn't a secret anymore. The Zenkal would come back with greater force, and next time, they wouldn't make the same mistakes. As the bridge crew steadied the ship and prepared for extraction, Diana allowed herself one brief moment to close her eyes and breathe. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. And in the darkness of space, the abyssal wrath remained. A predator still lurking, ready to strike when the enemy dared to draw near again. The bridge was quiet, save for the hum of the systems and the occasional soft chime from the consoles. The abyssal wrath drifted silently through the void, cloaked and vigilant. The crippled battleship and the shattered remains of the cruisers floated nearby, like grim monuments to humanity's defiance. Diana remained at her post, eyes glued to the tactical map, even as exhaustion gnawed at the edges of her focus. The final strike had gone according to plan, but she knew better than to trust that victory meant safety. Malik approached, keeping his voice low. "Captain, Command just sent back a response. They're dispatching reinforcements from the remnant fleet, ETA 3 hours. We're to hold position and maintain observation." Diana gave a short nod, suppressing the knot of tension in her chest. "Understood. Any movement from the battleship?" "Negative," Malik replied. "Sensors show minimal power. Life support only. No FTL signals or distress beacons. Looks like the bridge strike disabled their comm array." "That's something at least," Diana muttered. "Let's keep a safe distance. We don't need any nasty surprises." As Malik moved to relay the orders, Diana spotted movement on the starboard screen. Just a faint flicker from the battleship's hangar bay. She frowned and gestured to Harlow. "Magnify on that section." The screen zoomed in, revealing small objects drifting away from the wreck. Harlow's fingers flew over the console. "Captain, I'm detecting escape pods. Zenkal. Maybe a dozen of them. They're scattering in different directions." Diana's jaw clenched. "Number, we can't let them get away. If even one of those pods reaches a Zenkal outpost, they'll know exactly what happened here." Malik looked conflicted. "They're defenseless, Captain. We'd be shooting down survivors." She didn't waver. "Those survivors will bring back a fleet if we let them. Humanity can't afford mercy right now. Target the pods. Take them out." There was a hesitation, a faint whisper of protest in the crew's expressions. But Malik didn't argue. He gave the firing command, and the pulse cannons lit up the void, one by one obliterating the drifting pods. Diana forced herself to watch, her jaw tight and her hands gripping the command rail. These were the choices that haunted her, the lines she had to cross to protect the future. No one else would understand, and she didn't expect them to. When the last pod vanished into fire, Diana let out a slow, shuddering breath. She knew what the crew thought. She could feel the weight of their judgment, but none of them said a word. They trusted her to make the hard calls, even if they didn't agree. "Clean up the debris," she ordered quietly. "We leave no trace of our presence here." As the crew worked, Diana moved to the observation deck, needing a moment away from the watchful eyes and silent questions. She leaned against the railing, staring out at the field of stars, her mind replaying the battle over and over. A soft footstep made her turn, and she found Alyssa standing at the doorway, looking uncertain. Diana forced a small smile. "Couldn't sleep?" Alyssa shook her head, eyes downcast. "I heard The guns, are we safe now? Diana hesitated. For now. We hit them hard enough to make them think twice. Reinforcements are on the way. Alyssa stepped closer, her hands twisting together nervously. Why do they hate us so much? Why can't they just leave us alone? Diana didn't have an answer, at least not one that would make sense to a kid who'd seen her whole world collapse. Sometimes people, creatures, are just bent on taking what isn't theirs. They don't care about who gets hurt. They just want control. Alyssa's expression hardened, and her young face twisted with bitterness. I hate them. I want them all to burn. Diana looked at her, remembering her own fury when Earth fell, how it had fueled her, shaped her into the weapon she had become. Hate's useful, she said softly, but don't let it swallow you whole. Use it to fight back, to survive. Alyssa looked at her with a fierce determination that startled Diana. I want to help. I don't want to just sit around while others fight. Teach me how to fight back. Diana's chest tightened with a mix of pride and sorrow. We'll get you trained, but first you need to learn how to survive, one battle at a time. The girl nodded, her resolve hardening. Diana felt a flicker of hope. Maybe the next generation wouldn't just be victims. Maybe they could be fighters too. When Diana returned to the bridge, Malik was waiting, his expression troubled. Captain, we picked up a faint signal, unidentified. It's not Zenkal, but it's heading our way, fast. Diana's brow furrowed. Can you identify it? Malik shook his head. No, but it's using old Earth resistance codes. Could be a remnant scout ship. She straightened, unease prickling along her spine. Put it on screen. A moment later, the visual feed flickered to life, showing a small, agile craft approaching. The comms crackled, and a voice came through, gravelly and worn. This is Commander Felix Darnell of the Vanguard's Rage, requesting permission to approach. Is that you, Abyssal Wrath? Diana's eyes widened. She knew that voice. This is Captain Diana Grayson. Felix, you old bastard, is that really you? A rough laugh came through. Damn right it is. Thought you were a ghost story by now. Command sent us to reinforce. Looks like you took care of most of it yourself. Diana couldn't help but grin. Never did wait for backup. Get your ass aboard. We've got plenty to talk about. The relief among the crew was palpable, and Malik gave her a rare smile. The reinforcements had arrived, and the sector was secure, at least for now. As Vanguard's Rage docked, Diana leaned back, allowing herself a moment of reprieve. They had fought, they had won, and now they would regroup. The war wasn't over, but they had proven one thing. The Zenkal were not invincible. Humanity would not go quietly into the dark. Not while warriors like Diana and her crew were willing to strike from the shadows, reminding the galaxy that predators could also be prey. And as long as Abyssal Wrath sailed through the stars, the enemy would never know peace, because humans didn't just survive. They hunted,